This is an unfair and very political ruling that is still pending because it was appealed by the prosecutor of the High Court, and in the 19th of March, the High Court asked to come back to the first instance ruling of a 30-year sentence. So we don't know what will happen, and it's not impossible that our comrades again will be sent to prison for 30 years. We are still expect the outcome of the second instance trial, and for 4 years incessantly we fight for the rights, and just like Thanasis just said, we need the solidarity of the international community because anti-terrorist law has to do with all of us. It's an attack to everybody fighting imperialism. That's why we need your help and your solidarity in this case of the Turkish militants. Now we'll give the floor to Adrian. Adrian Font. Adrian Font is a member of the Catalan Organization for Human Rights. He has also lived in Greece and has worked with refugee matters. It's very important the fact that he is today among us because he can point to the things that, to the topics that he has been working on, and we know that Catalonia has lots of resistance, lots of struggle. It's very important that he is here, and we give him the floor.
Hello. Kalispera. Merhaba. Thanks to invite me. I'm really happy, and I'm going to use some slides to explain my talk. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to talk about anti-terrorist law in Spain and Catalonia, especially against the Catalan movement. Just to give a little bit the context, this is Catalonia, this is Catalan countries, is in the Mediterranean Sea. Nowadays in Spanish, under Spanish and French state. And it's divided between different territories. Catalonia, of course, is the most known. The capital is Barcelona. I come from Barcelona. What about the Catalan movement? Just to give some keys to know about what are we talking about. The Catalan movement was born in the 1930s. There was the Spanish Civil War at that moment, and Catalonia was Republican, so was against the Franco dictatorship. But after the Spanish Civil War, there were 40 years of dictatorship of Franco. All the Catalan institutions were banned and prohibited, and the Catalan language was forbidden. So there were no movement because there were a very big repression, a lot of exiled people, a lot of killed people in concentration camps all over the Spanish state. But then in the 60s and the 70s, a lot of anti-colonial movements in Argelia, for example, were born, and also in Catalonia. In fact, there were an armed group called Land and Freedom. This is the translation. In Catalan is Terra Lliure. But after that, the movement became more intergenerational and pacific, and nowadays is very, very, very big political and social movement there. About the context of these last 15 years, and then I will enter to the case that I'm going to explain. Just to know that in 2010, the Constitutional Court of Spain suspended the Catalan autonomy law that has been approved by the Catalan parliament and voted in a referendum for the Catalan citizens. And after that decision of the Constitutional Court, there were big demonstrations, especially in Barcelona, and the Catalan government pushed for a referendum in agree with the Spanish government. But the Spanish government say, no, referendum is not possible. Spain is one state. You cannot change the Spanish constitution. But the movement was so strong at that moment, and the Catalan government organized this self-determination referendum on October 2017, the 1st of October 2017. And the Spanish government sent the police, 10,000 anti-riot police, to all Catalonia to use violence against the citizens who were going to vote in the schools. Okay, but the surprise was that people were not afraid of the police, and more than 2 million people disobeyed the Constitutional Court, disobeyed the police, disobeyed the orders of the Spanish government, and voted on that referendum. Of course, the Spanish government claimed that this referendum is not legal, but for us, it was a legitimate referendum because it was the right to self-determination of our nation, and it was a matter of democracy and human rights. But what happened afterward that referendum? After that, there were big repression against the leaders of that movement. Some were politicians, some were social activists, and 9 of them went to prison and others went to exile. For example, the former Catalan president, Carles Puigdemont, he went on exile to Belgium, and that was a little bit the scenario, no? Of course, the international organizations of human rights, including Amnesty International, etc., said that all these actions, all these imprisonments of social leaders or political representatives were not legal and were against human rights. And the Spanish state, after some months of pre-trial detention of these leaders, made the trial. The trial was in the Supreme Court. You can see here, it was the chamber in the Supreme Court. I was part of the team of one defendant who's called Jordi Cuixart. He was leader of a civil society organization for Catalan language and culture. And the surprising thing is that the court admitted that the far-right party Vox, who was created by fascists in Spain, and supported by Steve Bannon, the marketing leader of Donald Trump, they were part in that trial. So the far right was accusing the Catalan leaders, apart from the public prosecutor, of course. The defendants are there, and the lawyers were in the left. Okay, of course there were international observers, some of them members of European democratic lawyers, like members from CEJATE. What happened after the sentence in that trial? There were massive protests all over Catalonia, especially in Barcelona. On October the 14th, there were an occupation of the Barcelona airport, blocking all the flights were cancelled. There were different marches towards the capital city, towards Barcelona. There were a general strike, campaign in front of the universities, occupation of universities, a very big social movement. And one of the platforms that organized the people was Tsunami Democratic. What was Tsunami Democratic? This was a platform formed by civil society members, not politicians, but people who were part of the social movements that organized a network without any leader, and nobody knew at that moment who was in charge of that platform. And they used tactics of civil disobedience and especially using Telegram channel to give orders to the population, to the citizens, to participate in the protest. But what happened? Of course, when the Spanish government saw that these protests were so massive, they start to criminalize that movement, and the Spanish Ministry of Interior said that was terrorism, okay? Said that Tsunami Democratic was terrorism. But the actions were closing the roads, occupying the airport, occupying squares, streets. There were no violence, okay? And of course, they closed the website of Tsunami Democratic, they closed the application, there were a mobile application. So the order of the court was to close all the social networks of Tsunami Democratic. Here you can see when you try to enter to the website of Tsunami Democratic, it says that this URL has been blocked by disposition of the judiciary authority. At that moment, in October, some protests started to became clashes with the police. So there were like a big battle in the center of Barcelona, so-called the Battle of Urquinaona. Urquinaona is a square in Barcelona. It's like Omonia, a little bit. And there were a lot of injured and a lot of detainees, and of course, more than 200 arrested, 700 investigated, 40 people pre-trial detention. So there were big protests and big repression at that moment. So after this finished, it started the court case in the Audiencia Nacional. Now I'm going to explain what is Audiencia Nacional. But I started this court case for terrorism that now is it's going over. It's not finished. That case is open. The file is open. Okay. The context a little bit. After all that repression, a lot of people demand the amnesty for the Catalans that have been prosecuted or investigated by the Spanish authorities. And last year, after the Spanish elections, the Pedro Sánchez, who is now the president of Spain, made an agreement with the Catalan parties to pass this amnesty law, to give amnesty to all the political prisoners. But the amnesty law doesn't cover the crime of terrorism, because it's only amnesty for minor offenses like public disorders or like injuring someone or like breaking something, but not the crime of terrorism. So what the Audiencia Nacional, a Spanish court created by Franco dictatorship, did? The Audiencia Nacional started a case for terrorism because it was the only way to prosecute these people that were going to be amnestiated for the amnesty law. So, Audiencia Nacional, the court that has opened this file when the protest and closed the website and closed the application, they had this secret file for more than 3 years. All the investigation was secret, and then in November last year, so 4 or 5 months ago, they opened the file and they start to investigate for terrorism 12 people. So why they say that is terrorism? Because in the protest in Barcelona airport, one French citizen, one tourist, was dead because of a heart attack. And they say that this heart attack is a consequence of the protest. So they are using the innocent death of someone to use this crime of terrorism against these people. Of course, the French authorities are saying that there are no relation between the death of that man and the protest, but they need some argument, they need something to use the crime of terrorism against these people. And who are these people? One is the president of Catalonia, the former president, Carles Puigdemont, who is in Belgium now. Also the leader of the other big Catalan party, Marta Rovira, who is exiled in Switzerland, in Geneva. And the other ones are activists, journalists, some deputies, etc. In fact, one of them, that activist in the left, He was my boss when I was working in that civil society organization, and he is one of the accused for terrorism. And what about the public prosecutor? The public prosecutor of Audiencia Nacional, this special court created in Franco dictatorship, said that it's not terrorism. But the Supreme Court, which is the court that is competent of this case because there are some deputies, and as they are political representatives, they have to be judged in the Supreme Court, says, and you have here the result of the votation, that this case, yes, it's terrorism. So now the situation is that the Supreme Court decided to investigate that case for terrorism. Of course, international organizations like Amnesty International are saying that using the crime of terrorism against the participation of protest or indeed civil disobedience is against the rights of freedom of speech and freedom of demonstration. And what is the defense strategy? Of course, the lawyers of the defense are saying that all these protests were exercising fundamental rights. Maybe if there is a flight cancellation, you are affecting the normality in an airport, but this is not terrorism. Maybe it's public disorder crime, I don't know. But of course, these are use of right to protest, no? Another argument they are using, the defense, is that there were no call to violent action. All the call was to do civil disobedience, right to protest, not violent action. Also because there were not so many detainees of Tsunami Democratic, because that protests were pacific in general, so there were some detainees, but not a lot, so they used this argument. And in fact, in the protest, there were some people investigated, but these three regional courts of Catalonia said these people investigated free and say that there is no crime. Indeed, the crime of public disorder. So the regional courts are saying that there are no crimes, and the Supreme Court are saying that it's terrorism. This has no sense, okay? And this is one of the strategy of the defense. So what about the amnesty? Last month, the Spanish parliament passed the law with a majority of the Socialist Party, the left party Podemos, and the Catalan and Basque parties. But the right wing, especially the judges, and also the right wing and far right parties are saying that they are going to stop this amnesty. So we don't know what's going to happen next month. And finally, I just want to share some conclusions with you. The first one is that the right to protest and the right to fair trial and the freedom of speech are really in danger in Spain, apart from Turkey, apart from Greece and other European countries. Another one is that the Spanish judiciary is trying to act against democratic decisions of the parliament, so it's lawfare. Another one, which I think that is the most important in the talk of today, is that the courts are using the crime of terrorism against the protesters, against the dissidents, against the minorities, against the people who organize themselves to defend their rights. The fourth one is that Audiencia Nacional, that Franco court that is still working today, made this secret investigation for 4 years only for political reasons. The fifth conclusion is that these courts and the police did prospective investigations with some that it's not legal in a rule of law state, because you cannot investigate someone without any sign of there is a crime. And of course, they used applications like Pegasus and Candiru, which are not legal. And finally, the last conclusion is that the right wing and the far right wing in Spain didn't respect the democracy results and want to destabilize and overthrow the left government of Spain right now. So thank you very much.
Ευχαριστούμε τον Άντρα, gracias, για την τοποθέτησή του που ήταν και αρκετά περιεκτική σε σχέση και με το οκ. Ο ένας από διερμηνέας αλλάζουν διερμηνές. Θα περιμένουμε ένα λεπτάκι. Οκ. Ωραία. Λοιπόν, θα περάσουμε στον επόμενο ομιλητή.
The next speaker is Roland Meister. Roland is from Germany. He's the lawyer in the Capistra cases that have to do with Germany's terrorist laws. He has defended many militants that have been persecuted with these very strict imperialist terrorist laws. And he's also a member of the lawyers' teams that defends the three revolutionaries, anti-fascist revolutionaries from Turkey, who are being detained right now in isolation in German prisons. This is a revolutionary journalist, Gülem Ren, the member of Yorum group, this historical member who is also suffering from cancer, a cancer that he developed inside German prisons because they don't allow him to see a doctor, and he had a biopsy after 15 months in Saint-Belik and Sechan Kubelik, anti-fascist comrade. Together with Anna Busla, who spoke earlier today, and Genel Suzer, who will speak today, we will listen now to Roland Meister.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the invitation and the possibility to speak. Almost 26 years ago, on 13th of August 1998, the Revolutionary People's Liberation Party Front was banned in Germany. This continued the series of bans on progressive and revolutionary migrant organizations in Germany, which began in 1972 with the banning of the Palestinian Quds and Quba, the General Union of Palestinian Students and Workers. This was followed by the banning of Devrim Chisol in 1983, the Kurdistan Workers' Party PKK and its affiliated organizations in 1993, and the DHKPC ban in 1998. On 12th of February 2019, the associations Mesopotamia and MER Multimedia were banned as sub-organizations on the PKK. On 2nd of November 2023, the Federal Minister of Interior banned Samidun Palestinian Solidarity Network. Germany is the only European Union country to practice such reactionary bans on organizations which are essentially based on the 1956 ban on the German Communist Party KPT. These bans were accompanied by expulsions and deportations to the torture chambers of reactionary regimes such as Turkey. Thousands of events, demonstrations, concerts, newspapers, and emblems allegedly affiliated with the PKK, DHKPC have since been banned. To this day, alleged functionaries of the DHKPC, PKK, or TKPML are prosecuted for membership of a criminal or terrorist organizations. These are the sections 129, 129A, and 129B of the German Criminal Code. And they are sentenced to long prison terms by special courts, the so-called state protection senates of the higher regional courts. So-called structural investigation proceedings have been initiated against other organizations like MKP, Maoist Communist Party, and MLKP, Marxist-Leninist Communist Party, all are from Turkey and also on the Tamil Tigers. The bans are always aimed at intimidating migrants living here and anti-racist and internationalist people that show solidarity. Political opinion and the organizational criminal law. The state protection function of this section 129 has historical links to the fight against revolutionary movements in the history. First, it was added to the Criminal Code in 1871. It survived the German Empire and the so-called Weimar Republic in several variations. Under Hitler fascism, it took a backseat to other methods of repression, like concentration camps or camps to destroy, to liquidate the Jewish people, for example, but also the communists in Germany. In Germany, you have to know more than 40,000 communists are liquidated in this time, and more than 150,000 people only in Germany were in prison. 1943 in Germany, 1,500,000 people were in prison by political reasons under Hitler fascism. From 1951 onwards, this section 129 once again formed one of the foundations of state security criminal law. In the 1950s, it led to more than 130,000 investigations against suspected members of the Communist Party of Germany. You have to know 1945, these communists came out the concentration camps. In 1951, 6 years later, they came again in prison. That's German history. Section 129 gained particular significance through Section 129a of the German Criminal Code, which was introduced in 1976 as part of the so-called persecution of terrorists and made membership of a so-called terrorist organization as a criminal offense. Section 129a contains high penalties and was a starting point for a special criminal procedure. This procedure, which ranges from surveillance measures, defense lawyer mail checks, and separating the lawyers from our clients in the prison. So for an example, my client is Serkan Küpeli. Since 2 years, I can see him only behind glasses. We can't have direct contact. And in this trial in Düsseldorf, in the beginning, they were also behind glasses. We have no direct contact with them, but there were big protests, and so after some weeks, these cabins were closed and they can beside us. But in the prison, it's not possible to have direct contact. Also, in the case of our client Serkan, his child was born 15 days before his arresting, and nearly 1.5 years he can see his wife and his child only through glass. And it's really, that shows also this inhuman aspects of this so-called anti-terror laws. She said it. Another point is the case of Ihsan Cipelik. In his case, this also include massive restrictions on healthcare. When he was arrested, it was known perhaps he had cancer. After some months, we know he had cancer, but today there was no operation of this cancer because it's very necessary. Nearly 2 years, but this is a reality of what German state is doing against revolutionary people. Yes, it's so-called bourgeois democracy, but it's the reality we have to see. The so-called attacks on 11 September of 2001 were used to pass many prepared laws. A key component of this was the introduction of Section 129b of the German Criminal Code. This makes membership of and support for so-called foreign terrorist organizations as a criminal offense. The so-called terror lists created by the European Union and the United States, also in the wake of 11/9, serve additional political instruments. Individuals and organizations on these lists are considered so-called terrorists, with all the associated repressive consequences. In addition to some fascist organizations with Islamist overtones, it mostly includes progressive and revolutionary organizations such as the FARC from Colombia, the PFLP from Palestine, the THKPC in Turkey, the PKK in Kurdistan, or the Communist Party of the Philippines and the New People Army of the Philippines. The attacks on 11/9 were not the cause, but only the reason, as the corresponding drafts had already been available at the Federal Ministry of Justice since 1999. The fight against the so-called terrorism is just a pretense. And now in Germany, in connection with the genocide in Gaza, support for Israeli state terror is provided under the pretext of the fight against the so-called anti-Semitism. Civil democratic rights and freedoms are to be further dismantled. The rights of the police and intelligence services, which are intended for a state of emergency, are to become the normal state for an indefinite period. Fundamental rights such as the basic data protection right, the informational self-determination, and the obligation to separate the work of police and secret service are to be severely restricted and in some cases de facto abolished. In Germany, perhaps some of you know, in the fascist history, we had the so-called Gestapo. It means secret police. And after Hitler fascism in the German constitution was written down, police and secret service have to be separated. But in reality, it's over because we have many institutions, mostly this Bundeskriminalamt, federal police, like FBI in the United States. So in this, by this institution, the separation was over in reality. In the Düsseldorf trial, we see it is a prime example for this. Section 129b is an essential part of the reactionary overall strategy of those in power. There has never been a criminal provision such as 129b in Germany, political criminal law before. Also, the repression and criminalization of the revolutionary forces and labor movement by means of criminal law has one side a history of more than 200 years in Germany. In 1822, associations were banned for the first time due to called revolutionary activities, and their members were persecuted. In the 1950s and until the mid-1960s, now for the first time under the legal heading of criminal association, it played an important role also in the cases against the banned Communist Party of Germany. Sections 129a and b are a classic investigation paragraph. The ratio of investigation proceedings to subsequent conviction also proves that these sections is a kind of open sesame for state security and effectively breaks the so-called separation. For those in powers, it is not only important that the respective trials are actually carried out. The investigation itself is of great importance to them, because we know from the trials at the moment, so they make a trial against 3 people, but against more than 100 other people, they can look what they are doing and are preparing new trials if it's necessary. With the complex special legal system in place via 129a and b, they have a set of instruments at their disposal to record opposition forces, collect data and create sociograms of opposition forces that can be used not only repressively, but also preventively and operationally. In the pursuit of revolutionary forces from Turkey, in close cooperation with the Turkish security and intelligence services like MET and the so-called General Security Directorate of Ankara and Istanbul. We know so that nearly every 2 months there are on high-level meetings between Turkey and Germany, and by this are also topics against which organizations we make new operations. So there is, it's really crazy. Germany on one side is criticizing Turkey by in the question of human rights. On the other side, they are very near working together in against revolutionary, progressive, and democratic forces. The DHKPC is accused of so-called terrorism for its resistance, including armed resistance, against the fascist Erdogan regime and the goal of building a socialist society. The anti-fascist resistance and liberation struggle is thus labeled as terrorism. The practice of applying Section 129b by the federal government and the courts to actual or alleged members of DHKPC, PKK or DKBML ignores international law, such as this additional protocol to the Convention of Geneva. Comrade from the Philippines spoke in the morning about it. This additional protocol recognizes armed conflicts in which people fight against colonial rule and foreign occupation and against fascist regimes in the exercise of their right to self-determination as legitimate. To illustrate the dimension of these sections, since 1988, around 1,400 criminal proceedings have been conducted against around 2,000 people in connection with the PKK, resulting to more than 100 convictions. In the same period, around 200 DHKPC-related proceedings were conducted and resulting in about more than 30 convictions. There were around 100 investigations into DKBML, which led to 10 convictions. At all, you can see nearly 2,000 proceedings were conducted against revolutionary organizations from Turkey in this time in Germany, and at the moment 11 people are in pre-trial detention on prison for PKK and 5 people for DHKPC offenses. At the moment are currently 3 proceedings against PKK before the State Security Senate and 2 proceedings against DHKPC in Düsseldorf and Stuttgart. In the Düsseldorf proceedings, we are...
You have L to close.
Okay, I have
A little bit, yeah.
finish. Okay, so I... Okay. The 129 proceedings against alleged DHKPC members are essentially based on documents that have been sent from Turkey by way of the so-called mutual legal assistance. These documents are intended to prove the organization's authorship of a series of attacks in Turkey, as well as findings on the structure and functioning of the organization in Germany. However, it is known that the Turkish police regularly use torture methods or the threat of torture in political proceedings in Turkey. This is confirmed also by decisions of the European Court of Human Rights, but also by the case law of the administrative courts in Germany in asylum cases. And this means that documents German courts get by torture in Turkey are used in German trials. That means to legitimize torture also in Germany, but in Germany torture is forbidden by the constitution. At all, the other side is that it is encouraging that a movement for democratic rights and freedoms is developing. It is good that the bans of DHKPC and PKK are also being criticized more strongly in this context, as are the 129A-B proceedings against members of the opposition from Turkey and Kurdistan. We think sections 129A-B have to be cancelled without replacement. But we have in this point, I want to say something. We have also to classify the role of the lawyers in strides like this correctly. Concrete success, by my meaning, is only possible through the interaction of extrajudicial mass mobilization, cooperation with mass and revolutionary organizations, and militant and unyielding defense at the trial by the lawyer. For such an attitude is Ebrotemptics a great example. But it's also a school for everyone, these trials. As Lenin said, proletariat that does not lead the consistent revolutionary struggle for democracy cannot prepare itself for victory over the bourgeoisie. Thanks.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ τον Ρονάλ
Thank you very much
για την τοποθέτηση αυτή.
for your presentation.
Επίσης, είναι σημαντικό η κοινή βάση η οποία
It is important this common basis that all anti-terrorist laws have. You presented to us the German anti-terror law 129 A and B that is that is inspiring laws all over Europe, just like the Greek law. So this German law is a very strict, draconian law that penalizes even organizing a concert to give out pamphlets. It penalizes all this simple action just to give out some flyers, some pamphlets, or to actually take part in this struggle like these political prisoners are. There's one political prisoner that is a prisoner because he carried the coffin at a funeral, the coffin of a woman, a comrade who had died. And in Germany, this is what she was accused for, because she carried the coffin of her dead comrade. It's very important also regarding the cooperation within imperialism and fascism in Turkey. The same thing we have in Germany. Germany is very close to Turkey, not least financial relations. These two meetings every 2 months happen also between Greece and Turkey, not only between Germany and Turkey. This trial that is pending of the 11 comrades have also to do with this meeting between Erdogan, Biden, and Mitsotakis in Vilnius in Lithuania. So all these anti-terrorist laws all over the imperialist world are connected. And thank you very much for your enlightening presentation. Next is Eda Demisardaroglu. She's a comrade who's been fighting from Germany. She grew up in Germany. She's one of the hunger strikers who carried out a hunger strike outside the prisons in order to draw attention exactly to this German anti-terrorist law 129 and so on, and they carried out with other militants a hunger strike with very just demands to stop this unjust law and to release these prisoners at least until they are tried, because this is also an attack on the rights of these prisoners. Eda and Seville stopped their hunger strike, but this hunger strike is being continued by Lena Chipkios. We will hear about the resistance and how all this struggle took place in Germany. Now we're listening to our comrade.